Hello, glad you could join us. What you're about to hear is not financial advice, legal counsel, or investment instruction. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed are only those of the hosts and guests and do not comprise professional advice. Due dilly follows where money flows or was impacted because of it. You'll hear references to things that will always be available in the show description or episode notes for you to dive deeper into and check out. Enjoy the show.
What's going on, everybody? I am Jonathan. Welcome to another episode of Do Diddly. I'm here with my co-host, Carl.
Hey, what's going on, y'all?
Today, we have a very special episode. I'm excited about this one. We've been doing a lot of research, and it's all about beauty. Before we start, I kind of need to lay this out. We scoped out the whole season, and this personally is one of my favorite episodes because I believe beauty as an industry is one of the clearest examples of an environment that has been enmeshed with creators and the creator economy before it had a name and before it sort of has become commercialized in the way it is now. So my hope with this episode is, one, you get a sense, if you're not familiar with beauty, of what's going on. If you are, which many of you probably will be, that you hear some of your favorites or some new favorites. And that, two, you understand how integral creators are for moving product, building community, establishing brands, and driving really big businesses with outsized impact.
Yeah, man. I'm excited for this too. As you know, I'm deeply entrenched in the beauty industry, whether it's clients I represent or businesses I own. So it's really dope to kind of not only dig into the current day structure of the industry, but also kind of take just like a long step back, a long trip, a long road back to how, the industry is like developed through the creator economy since we kind of been online doing this stuff. And just how expansive it is. So I guess my question for you is, when we're talking about beauty, what are we talking about?
Yeah, so I think it's important to clarify what the industry is and also what comprises it. Because a lot of times you can say something, but there's a lot of things inside of it. So if we talk about beauty and personal care, the size number kind of fluctuates, but it's around $677 billion in the US. And it's saying that it'll exceed it about $800 billion in the coming years. The United States itself generates $105 billion in beauty revenue, which makes it the world's largest beauty market. So that may or may not maintain itself given what's going on in the world. But for the purpose of this episode, a lot of the things we're talking about are domestic. I think beauty is interesting because over 50% of global beauty sales are driven by social and e-commerce channels. So that's very, very important because what's happening online is affecting what's happening in person. So when you think about retail footprints, or you think about pop-ups, or you think about what a new brand takes in a market where 50% of the sales are driven digitally, it is one of the most competitive spaces you could do anything at all. So if you're not nice, you kind of can't come in the kitchen at all. You have to be really, 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 really clear, and you have to be in it for the long haul to kind of build something that's sustained and you can execute on, which we'll get into.
Yeah, for me also, being that so much of the products are so digitally, for me, I always look at the beauty industry as the first mover for the tactics and strategies that brands actually later on go and do. Because that's usually, for me, the forefront of like product selling, where people are like, hey, you know what? We're going to try the most audacious things. We're going to bring into play the most audacious folks. A lot of different creators kind of came up through that space, trying different things, communicating with audiences differently. And I think what has happened is, through the beauty industry, a lot of other industries that sell product online actually have like picked apart some of the things that they've done really well and have actually applied them to other industries. So yeah, this is hella exciting, bro. I guess, where do you wanna start this convo? I mean, do we wanna really kick into the history of the space in terms of e-commerce first, or how do you want to drive it?
Yeah, I think it's important to kind of layer on the tactics and the strategies are not new, that they are sort of remixed. And so I think oftentimes what happens in beauty happens, to your point, downstream the industry. So in New York right now, I don't know how long it's running for, but the AI company Anthropic has a build out in the West Village, sort of their first ever, at least on the East Coast that I know of, sort of physical brand activation. And so they have sort of this cafe area that they redid. You go in, it's chill, it's relaxed. But if you're from New York, you've been around the city, you know that that beauty pop-up thing is sort of a rite of passage. Glossier was doing it for a really long time. Fashion Week comes around, you know what's going on downtown. So I think that sort of a consumer technology company is looking around, and we'd be lying to ourselves if we didn't consider that influence is something you don't get credit for, you just have children from. And so beauty has birthed a lot of kids out here in terms of the types of physical activations, even the digital trend lines that you start to see. So I think part of this is also talking about the creator influence. And so there's kind of 4 different types of environments that creators, I think, provide outsized impact in. One is as sellers. So that's people moving product through recommendations, partnerships. I read a stat when I was researching this that around, I think it's something about 68% of consumers say that they buy actual beauty and care products via recommendation. So a recommendation is incredibly valuable for a beauty product because your skin is your biggest organ. So if it doesn't work, you could have an actual medical problem. But if it does work, it could actually solve something for you. And that actual through play is really valuable, but when it's bad, it's awful. You have makers, so people that are launching their own lines and products. We'll talk about that in a second. But that's also what we're talking about in the creator economy now. People launching courses, brands, businesses. Beauty creators, influencers have been doing that for a decade plus now. So that's not a new environment or understanding. You got tastemakers, so people who set the trends, who describe what the moment is, who give cultural, historical, even commercial context for how a brand shows up, what they're doing, how long they've been doing it for. And so that's kind of like an intelligentsia around the industry, like any other industry. So those are cultural critics. And then you have consumers, people who want to use the product, who feel like it helped them, who feel like they're a part of it, who have a kind of affinity to it. And if you kind of bridge all those things, that's kind of the 4 parts of how the creator influence continues to expand.
When you break those categories down, like I think about so many legends that have like pushed beauty products forward, right? Whether it's actual creators themselves that went and made their own products, or creators that went and found new innovative products or found solutions to particular issues with whether it's your skin, hair, XYZ, and like became just like evangelists for it. Or just like, different types of creators that just kind of just set the tone for how, not only how to market those products, but also like this particular brand in general. And then also just like all the different strategies that certain beauty companies actually did, right? In terms of building audiences and having audiences themselves actually become the evangelists in that space, right? And I think that's another thing that I'm excited to talk about today, because I know that we're going to probably have the ability to kind of break down different brands and how they played how they not only played in the marketplace, but also how they innovated there, and also just the like types of distinction. You know what I mean? And obviously we are, we're guys who use specific beauty products, and we're folks who admire beauty brands, but I don't wear makeup, and I don't think you wear makeup either. So like there's gonna be some limitation, I believe, in terms of our understanding of how these products connect. But I don't know. I look forward to us trying our best to communicate that in this episode.
Yeah, I think it's important to kind of talk about the categories too, because I think sometimes because there's so much that comprises beauty as a noun, depending on what you use most consistently, that's your definition of beauty. And so if you think about it, skincare takes up about 50% of the market. And so skincare is stuff that's doing sort of brightening, hydrating, soothing, smoothing, protecting. So that's anything from, hyaluronic acid to SPF 50. Right?
Yeah,
Those are beauty products.
Niacinamide, all these different types of, topicals that kind of either enrich a part of your body or at least creates an enriching experience to how you get ready, right? So it's really broad, but I do know that like there are certain things that are folks like kind of favorites to kind of get into. So I know that we want to make sure we do the episode justice by covering those two. But I guess let's kind of break down like the landscape. So you mentioned this skincare. I also mentioned this makeup, but like this also includes fragrances. This also includes men's grooming, and I guess anything bath and body.
Yeah.
Is there anything else I'm missing?
There's hair care. So the U.S. traditionally leads that market. There's nails, and then there's also device and tools.
Yeah.
So if you think about like the things you use, so that's razors, that's blow dryers, that's anything that essentially is associated, also is comprised when we talk about the size of the market.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also personal care. That can get kind of technical. So that's oral hygiene, things like that can actually get roped into beauty products. So if you think about a consumer brand like a P&G, they own actual categories across the chain, from toothpaste all the way to shampoo, all the way to conditioner. And so that can sometimes externally in the market description be comprised as beauty. Internally as an organization or even to consumers, those products sit in different places. Yeah. But when we talk about the size of a market, for the context of our conversation, those things are comprised to it.
Yeah, and that's super helpful because I think what makes this conversation something that people will appreciate is just like all the different pockets that if they were to want to engage in this space that like exists for them, right? Because, and I think part of the reason why the entire industry is cutthroat is because sometimes folks really try to, pin a definition in a particular suite of products. So it's like beauty is makeup, beauty is this, beauty is that. So because they see, let's say, really popular creators in that space doing really well, they want to compete in that space. But I think what you have the opportunity to do is to identify other categories within this, whole space and say, hey, you know what? Like, I'm actually going to go into hair care, or I'm actually going to go into the actual tools that we use instead of actually trying to go and, build a particular type of lip liner or something like that, right? Or eyeliner, right? So, but I guess there are other things that make this space really cutthroat. And some of the things that I think through when I think about it being cutthroat is the fact that like it's like consistently innovative. Like people are always coming up with new ideas and new, so not only in the way to market products, but also new products in general. And so folks are consistently making like new types of products and marketing to new audiences. I think about like when Fenty Beauty came into the space, right? Like before that, it was really, really difficult for people to find so many different shades of foundation for themselves, right? Like if you were a particular skin color, like it was just really, really hard for you to find foundation that matched the rest of your skin. So maybe you're putting makeup on and your face like literally looks completely different than your hands, right? And Rihanna said, hey, you know what? Like, let me actually expand the shade palette to be like way, way more inclusive. What are some ways that you've seen other brands like be really creative in the space?
Yeah, I think it's also important to talk about like the types of business, because I actually think that the type sometimes affects the creativity. So Rihanna starting Fenty she was clear about why she was doing it, who she was doing it for. There was no confusion. And she's kind of run that play consistently, and that's helped Fenty grow and then walk itself into the sort of deal structure she's had, and has been incredibly successful and is highly valuable for what that audience actually brings and the kind of products that it's able to kind of move and the way it's able to move. I think that outside of that, you have more recently sort of the Hailey Bieber Rhode skin example, which interestingly enough, she launched in 2022 with 3 products. And so when you talk about a celebrity brand, but also the kind of discipline required to know what you're going to go to market with and then how you're going to go to market. And with only 3 options to buy, you have to be locked in with the people who are going to buy it, because there's only 3 purchase points. And so you can buy them all together, you can buy them individually. And they eventually expanded, I believe, out to around 8 or 10. But, the kind of following that has been developed by sort of having a person with influence or an audience, products that audience says they want and is responsive to, and then a hands-on relationship where you are having a direct-to-audience conversation about what you're doing, when the product's dropping, you using the product. All of these sort of examples allow that to become a personal relationship. I think if we're going to have a really honest conversation about kind of depth of audience, following, and sort of clarity of purpose, then, it goes without saying that in my estimation, Ami Coley did that better than anybody, in terms of the clarity of who it's for, why it exists, who it's meant to touch, and the kind of community that was built and supported it. I don't think we've, to my understanding and in my research, and as a fan, like seen something like that with that kind of global resonance, with that kind of speed and that kind of moment, with that kind of time horizon. So I think that is just something to call out, that being that specific about who you're for is always a light post.
What's so amazing about what Ami Coley did to me is how they turned their entire community into evangelists.
Trust is such a huge part of the success of your business, the strength of your community, and the support that you get. And I think that trust translates beyond the brand that you're building. And I think we saw it perfectly with Ami Coley. Like whatever she builds next, we're buying.
Like it's very rare on the internet to see so many people like really love a product and have that product in a real way become a part of their identity. To me, it was like, yo, like, did y'all like make Apple? Like, that's how I felt. Like, it was this idea that if you used the product, there was such a level of belonging that came with using the product. It was a beautiful form of creating identity, you know, and making space in an industry that, like, for that particular community, doesn't really like speak extremely well to, you know. So word, shout out to that team.
I think also, you know, from sort of the celebrity brand we just talked about, sort of the community focus aspect, I think it's important to talk about also sort of product forward stuff. So in my cursory research, and I had heard her name before, but this definitely like solidified even a different depth of creator, Pat McGrath Labs. So Pat McGrath is the foremost makeup artist on planet Earth. Like, if you are talking about makeup and you're talking about a premiere show, you're talking about Pat McGrath.
Intensifying.
Yes.
This is just showing how you can go from a really light smoke and how
For
you can
nighttime.
just get as daring as you want.
Beautiful.
And
Oh
how
my God.
easy that is. So you can just play with your colors and build the eye, but look how crazy you can go in a way, you know, really. Look how easy that is.
Now
Look at
it
that
looks like
smoke.
you're kind of blending a couple of
Yes.
colors there too. Beautiful.
And I'm just playing with all the different, like an eggplant, the brown, all of these colors. The way I love it is, this is almost like a day.
Yeah.
And this is your evening, and this is nighttime.
Okay.
So then,
Now
taking
you're
your
gonna-
bronze with your finger and just lifting the lid.
Pretty.
And look how beautiful.
Gorgeous.
And creamy that is. And then take a brush and blend. And look
at
how
that.
gorgeous.
Pat,
there you go.
You're the best.
She's done everything, done everyone's face, and is widely regarded as an innovator, like a technical innovator in sort of the art of doing makeup and the science of it. In 2024, I think it was the Macy Margiela show, she debuted this glass skin look where essentially the models were walking down and there was like a sheen on their face that looked like glass. And it just went like super viral. Like, people were just losing their minds because they'd never seen how do you do makeup that makes your face have that kind of texture, tonality? What are the products? And so in response, she ended up doing Instagram lives, talking about the formulation. And so there's also sort of an expertise element to some of the positioning of a certain brand. Of the person behind it is a practitioner. And as a practitioner, they bring sort of a robustness to how you're talking about the product, how you are partnering. I think she just launched a line with Louis Vuitton in this year. And you know, that price point is reflective of that. It's much more, it's kind of expensive in terms of when you look at kind of mass market. It's on the higher end, but you're secure because you know who made it and you know that they are sort of practicing. They're in the arena, so to speak, still. And so I think from my context, I think that's really unique for sort of a business that is focused on creators and kind of immersing people in how easy it is to do something, or how the quality behind the thing, right? She's got lines of brushes, she's got lines of shades. And so her explaining that as a premier makeup artist, like how to make yourself look like this, or how simple it could be, or how much easier you could have it if you used X, I think is just a very unique way to frame the product. And she's consistently sort of on some of these shows talking about why she's doing it, how she's doing it. So there's always kind of an explainer element to how do you get that look, which I think is also part of building community as well. Like, it's not just that like someone on the runway did it. It's that you can do it in your bathroom. And that like creates a level, I think, of achievement in some respects that like it's not just for that person, it's also for you. And if you have the products, you too can actually have that experience and come out looking that way or having that sort of confidence to do that.
Yeah, and even as a founder, right? Like if you're somebody who wants to kind of get into the space, you can actually be someone who's a practitioner in the space that can then go and build like a very successful brand that then goes and, you know, collaborates with larger brands like Louis Vuitton, so on and so forth. You don't necessarily have to have a celebrity driven product, which is, typically, the types of brands that, get the most media attention because it's related to a celebrity themselves. Um, so I guess since we're on that, right, since we're kind of covering both celebs and practitioners that kind of go and build these businesses, I guess we should probably also talk about how these things get built, right? So like, many different beauty brands build themselves differently, but from my experience as an attorney that represents beauty brands, I've only represented beauty brands that have been bootstrapped and self-funded. So typically they go and they find what they call a hero product. Like this product is going to be the product that differentiates myself from the marketplace. Whether it be a particular soap, like I think about like a company like Honeyglow that just has like a very special soap that solves like a very unique problem that many people have, or other brands that say, hey, maybe it's not one exact product, but maybe it's like a small suite of products that solve a particular unique need in the marketplace, right? So they typically do that, but then they couple that with, at least from my experience, with a D2C approach, like a direct to consumer approach, right? Which is great for testing your business, right? Because you don't necessarily have to, because it becomes a whole process when you say, hey, I'm going to go and raise a bunch of money, then I'm going to go and do the thing, and then I'm going to go and sell the thing. Then you go and sell the thing, and you realize people don't care. What I find is that, at least from my experience with working with those types of founders, is that they're like, yo, you know what? I'm going to go in the lab. I'm going to cook something up. This is what I think is going to hit. I'm going to make sure that it meets all the safety, regs, and I'm going to push product to market and see how people feel. And by bootstrapping it that way, you actually get to fail fast and then determine what changes you need to make to move forward, right? I think the other beauty of that process is that you get to maintain full creative control. So like one of the things that I find, and I'll bring up Honeyglow again, is that when TikTok Shop first went live, they went D2C from there. And they were doing TikTok lives super early, like, yo, look, this is what the product does. And they would have their friends come over to the house and they're like, yo, y'all, this is what we're doing, XYZ, this is how the product works. You want to buy it, click this link right here, copy it, send it right to your crib, right? Like, it took time for other beauty brands to consider TikTok Shop as a platform for D2C. Before that, folks were just like, yeah, we're just going to stick with our websites and do our thing. And that actually gets to not only show proof of product, proof of concept, but also it gets to then help you build your own brand identity through that process, right? So those are, some of the models that I've seen, at least from my experience. But how about you?
I judged a pitch competition last year that was sponsored by Prose Beauty. So Prose Beauty is a venture-backed company that does made-to-order beauty. So their sort of offering to the market is everyone is dynamic, everyone is unique. So go to our website, answer some questions, and we're going to send you custom formulations to your house. And you can get that as a one-off, or you can get a subscription. And so, to your point, to do something like that, you need specific capital, because that's an infrastructure and a facility opportunity to kind of fulfill that and then reach people where they are. In talking to a few people there, it's interesting because what Prose has figured out is that there is a select kind of consumer that actually wants hyper personalization. That could be down to hair texture, that could be down to skin sensitivity, which again is its own market. Like, not everyone can use the same kind of lotion. Some people, like, I need Eucerin because I actually might have a condition that makes my skin incredibly sensitive. And so the way a product is formulated, even if it's all natural, I can't use because of my allergy. And I think that creates an interesting opening, but you have to take venture capital to, one, fulfill the kind of scale you want, two, the kind of custom formulations you're playing with, three, the actual supply chain pressures that you're going to be dealing with, four, the sort of interventions you have on the personality technology side. So the personalization infrastructure to actually fulfill that kind of order, ship it, deliver it, and then also the ingredient costs, which kind of leads to I think one of the reasons beauty is so hard is because there are economic realities built into the model. So even if we step aside from sort of bootstrapping or even crowdfunding, where you can test a hero product by pre-selling it, and then people buy it, and that could be the actual seed capital for the future of producing your business, and you could just keep testing hero products, you still have to figure out your supply chain. There is no way you can operate in this environment without supply chain. If you get a production bottleneck, you could have a purchase order hanging over your head for 3 to 6 months, and you can't deliver it because you can't actually get the product from the port to somewhere else. And that actually can crush a business because now you have overhead costs that you can't account for, even if you have revenue on your books, which is actually really, really, really tough. And then you have price sensitivity, right? You got consumers in the market, you've got beauty influencers, you have brands competing for attention.
I think it is a global conversation, but for the UK, it's the first time the conversation has really risen to the surface, which is about counterfeit products and the authenticity of products that they're buying in beauty supply stores. Because up until this point, the Black community has just wandered into their local Black hair shop and bought products from there and believed that it was real. But with so much uproar and a lot of controversy around certain brands, people are now starting to interrogate it. People are starting to look at packaging. They're starting to look at the responsible party that's listed on the label. And these are all things that consumers didn't have to do before. So for I think it was our July box, we done a collaboration with Mayel Organics, and we literally printed a stamp of approval sticker on the products to show that it was Treasure Tress approved, because we don't deal with the middleman. We deal with the brands directly. We get it directly from the manufacturer. So there's absolutely no room for error in that the products that we would be sending to our subscribers wouldn't be the correct good.
And so if I'm doing this or that, the cheaper product might be the one in stock. The more expensive product might be the one that takes longer to get to me, but I really need it.
Right.
So I'm not actually as loyal as I appear to be. And I think that's actually one of the unique parts of beauty, is that, like, it could actually be that I like this more, but the availability was I needed this and they met the need. So loyalty is, I think, very different from what I'm understanding in terms of the product growing up with me is a different experience than I'm in a crisis and I went to Sephora and I need this thing. Like, those things don't actually equal out, and that can be challenging in a market like this.
Yeah, I also find that the idea behind a product growing up with somebody typically exists more in like the hair care side of beauty, more so than in the topical side of beauty, if that makes any sense. So more so in the like hair care space than in the skincare space. So like, for example, I think about a product like Carol's Daughter, like a brand like Carol's Daughter. Like, if you grew up on this product, if you're like people's moms were using this product, so they started using this product, right? Which created this level of like legacy, right? So there are some folks that kind of stick with these products simply because I grew up on this and it's always been working for me. This is a brand that I'm kind of with, but obviously the skincare space, when there's, constant innovations, constant uses of, new types of additions to these products, you tend to want to try something new, or you tend to want to have something that kind of solves an issue that's a bit more pressing.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that you actually mentioned a bit earlier, a few minutes ago in the convo, that made me think about just like the differences between the products is how many products a particular brand has, right? This idea of SKU management, which really just is short, SKU, which really is just short for stock keeping unit. And the thing with those, like the thing with the amount of products you have is that the more products you have, it adds more complexity, right? To everything that it is that you're doing. But of course, if you're a brand that's really trying to reach a wider audience, you try your best to have the most amount of products available. But Rhode, which is a brand that you mentioned a little bit earlier, kind of turned that idea on its head by just focusing on a particular number. I think they had maybe they started off with like 3 SKUs, only 3 products. Then I think at max they had like 8 or 9, which just tells you that if you're a person who like really is super tight on the product suite that you want to build out and where you want to fit yourself in the market, you could still be successful, because they ended up selling for over $1 billion. So for me, I think the note I take from that is that, you don't necessarily have to think of yourself as a person that has to copy and paste somebody you want to be like in this space. Really, it's, again, just figuring out, what is it that works for my particular brand and how I want to position myself within a particular community.
Yeah, I think that I agree. I think also, I think what's interesting about the Rhode sale is she had 2 other co-founders. And so those co-founders were professional operators. I believe they're a husband and wife team. And so there's a whole other story about they have also 50 to 60 employees. And so people have jobs to do, right? And so Haley has a job. And that job is to make sure your attention, when you give it, is fixated on what Rhode is, what it's going to look like, how it's going to feel, what's coming next. You are essentially the center of attention to direct it, but there's a whole operating infrastructure of people doing things. And I think that's also just, it's oftentimes like not acknowledged, celebrity or otherwise, that the infrastructure is a part of any industry, but particularly beauty. When you're taking an idea and IP, formulating something, packaging something, making sure it's compliant, and then getting it into retailer, like those steps by themselves are laborious.
It's crazy.
Like that's actually really, really labor intensive. And so this is by no stretch an easy place to even exist. It's definitely a grind to become a premier. And that's kind of part of like the differentiation on sort of this, typical format that is kind of marketing jargon, but they talk about the 4 Ps. So you have product, price, place, and position. And so across those Ps, right, when you think about product, you're talking about experiences, right? Quality, texture, scent, packaging. What does it feel like? What does it look like? Results, every product is a promise. If it's going to hydrate you, did it hydrate you? What did it feel like? Did it leave you feeling oily? Right? And so that's also a whole other part of the creator environment, which is that people are telling you what their experience was, and that experience has influence. And so if you are actually a consumer good, which beauty is, you have to be sensitive to public sentiment while also being clear about the market. Because if you're not clear, then every opinion could affect what you think you need to make.
So there's a disconnect between what the function of PR and marketing actually is and how and what it does. That comes at the top, and that leads to some of the outcomes that we see. But also when it's not baked in, you say, what do you lose? That's how you started the question. You lose those customers or potential customers that were at the door but weren't inside yet. The ones that are like, this sounds good, I'm close, I've bought it once, maybe I want to, stick around, but you don't have a lot of wiggle room with them. And then you may lose those early customers that are like, oh, darn, I just started supporting this brand, but I don't care enough. I can go over here to my tried and true and my favorites. So if you lose that trust by not being proactive, by not being intentional and thinking ahead, there are some consumers and customers you will never get back. And brands don't, when you're making millions of dollars, it's hard to see from quarter to quarter, like just a few customers dropping off and never coming back. But over time, especially if they are prominent on social media or if they start talking, that can lead to an avalanche of people leaving your brand or never buying again.
But if you're too stringent, you might not be available to other feedback. And so it's actually a very tough balancing act. You've got, price, what is a signal. So
Yeah, because it's like in this space, if you release a beauty product that's like too cheap, then you're basically telling folks that you're operating for mass adoption, right? But then, kind of the higher up, you kind of go into the space, you move into like mass tige, where you're a brand that is still trying to reach a lot of folks, but you're pricing yourself a bit higher. But then there's like a prestige product where you're really trying to differentiate yourself. And then you're telling yourself, or there's a luxury product, right? And typically what you find is that some brands, sometimes they make the mistake of mispricing themselves. So they're telling a different message with their pricing in terms of how they want to be positioned in the market. But then you find that some other brands, they actually do it really well. I find that a lot of the luxury brands are very effective in this because what they're effectively doing with their beauty products is they're creating these like mini luxury products that, if you can't afford a pair of Maison Margiela tabbies, you can go and get something you can get one of Maison Margiela's beauty products. Or same thing with Chanel. If you can't necessarily afford, a Chanel bag, you can then instead you can go and buy Chanel No. 5, right? And it still maintains the level of luxury that the product has, but it still allows the brand itself to market itself to a larger group of people while maintaining its luxury credibility, right?
yeah, I think luxury is interesting because it's one of those things that's very perceived, and so it isn't always a perception, which that other P is place. So like where the product lives also affects value. So in an Neiman Marcus or a Bergdorf's or a Harrods, right? Those are often aspirational places, but they're also designed in a particular way. So the store itself looks a particular way. And oftentimes, no matter where you are, there's a consistency of what the store is designed like how you enter the store, where things are placed, what things are not available on counter, what you have to ask for. Oftentimes that's part of, again, the user experience design, which I think beauty is also a front runner in. It's the relationship with the product starts way before you purchase it.
Yeah.
It starts almost immediately when the product is released, right? Because beauty is it's not based on simply announcement. There's a schedule. So there's like an infrastructure of shows, reveals, and so because it has connectivity with fashion and lifestyle, you're experiencing product integrations essentially all year round as part of other industries' calendars. And so, that distribution of being in Target or being in D2C only on my website is a part of exclusivity. There's a part of luxury of like, yeah, but I caught the last drop, which is similar to kind of streetwear.
Yeah.
And so you have sort of beauty brands that can move like Telfair because they're like, yeah, we're out. We'll get you next drop. And that's like a very specific kind of tactic and behavior. But, if you have that level of moat, it makes sense to use it. And then you have the promotion, which is, again, back to the creator overlay, which I called position earlier. How do you position that thing in public? And what does that look like? And so is it editorialized? Are people writing about it? Is it in Refinery 29? Is it, events? Is there like an eventing strategy where people show up and are experiencing it, but it's part of a larger thing? Could be a performance, could be a conversation, it could be gifted, it could be UGC, which I think is really interesting when people sort of at that masstige level, people are incentivized through either discounting or membership to talk about the results. I find you see this particularly in like men's products like beard oil. I've seen like brands grow really quickly by either your beard grew or it didn't.
Yeah.
Like that's sort of one of the strategies is like, yo, my joint was patchy and now it's full and I'm locked in. And so that's a user strategy that is overlaid by value and the promise being kept to, 5,000 people left 5-star reviews. And you're like, all right, cool. So this is like a hero brand.
Yeah.
Like I know worst come to worst, I'm in a city I don't know. I can go to Target and get this thing.
Right.
And my face is not going to break out.
Right.
That's actually a competitive advantage because if I'm not familiar with you, I don't have the association when I look at the aisle.
Yeah.
And that to me is, I think, one of the key indicators of beauty is a industry of integration. Like there has to be integration to engage the product market fit.
Mm-hmm.
Like things have to be integrated. And then creators are a part of that integration. I can't think of a single beauty brand that we've even mentioned today that can actually continue to perpetuate its value without creators.
Yeah. And you're finding that like many beauty brands are like innovating and trying their best to get them even more involved than they've been before. So like one of the things that I find that initially I found really interesting, but now it's like becoming normalized in the space is something you mentioned earlier, this idea of gifting, right? Where, I think about like a company like Garnier that like reaches out when they're like trying to do products that cater to men, let's say. They'll reach out to some of my clients and they'll say, hey, like, yo, we want to gift you XYZ ABC. If you like it, use it and just tell people about it, right? Which is a completely different gifting strategy than what I've seen previous, where it was kind of just like, here's an event, try this thing out and let us know what you think, right? This idea of targeting who you want to gift these things to identify, and then you give them the freedom to talk about your product whichever way they want to, is like a new way of doing this that I've that I haven't experienced before until I would say like the last year or so when those emails started coming into me. And I'm like, yo, like they just want to give it away. Like there's no influencer partnership. There's no post this for X dollars. No, just try it out and see what you want. And then what I've also found is that as you participate in this like gifting program, they actually then, after you've used the product for a significant period of time and you've actually shown that you like it and that there's progress, that then they'll actually say, hey, look, like we actually want to build a partnership with you. This is what the numbers look like, XYZ, right? So like this level of innovation in the promotion aspect of the 4Ps, I think also is really cool.
Yeah, I mean that kind of leads to this other segment that I really want to touch on, which is this idea of sort of the full stack beauty creator, like someone who essentially went from simply being an influencer to being an owner. And I cannot think of a better example of duration than Jackie Aina. All right, so Jackie Aina gets on YouTube in 2009. This is like a very important thing to mention before we even talk about her story, because YouTube started in 2005.
Mhm.
So if you are on YouTube in 2009, you are still within the window of early adoption.
Yeah.
So that's a completely different website. It's still trying to figure out its full product market fit. It's growing, obviously, but it's still in its infancy. She's also in the military. She's doing beauty and makeup tutorials and continuing to kind of grow an audience. And over time, for researching this, I found a video she did where she recreated the look of Aaliyah in More Than a Woman in like 13 minutes. And I was just like, yo, I'm definitely not the target audience for this, but this is actually remarkable. Like to recreate the look of her, like, you know what I'm saying? In 13 minutes is crazy work. Like, that's like a level of mastery.
Yeah.
And she was doing that 15 years ago.
She also did that one video where she was like, yo, like, why your foundation no match?
Yeah. like I just think like when we talk about duration, time under tension, focus, Jackie Aina has fundamentally reimagined what a creator could do on YouTube. Like she's built into I would say she's built into the algo, frankly, given when she started and who she was. And so we have to just kind of call a spade, like to be a dark-skinned black girl on YouTube in 2009 and to still be on YouTube in 2025, she's essentially transcended like 2 to 3 different waves of the internet. She grows an audience, which means if you think about the timeline, that's 15 years. So she is actually teaching people how to do makeup. She's teaching a generation of people how to do their makeup.
Yeah.
At school, abroad, like there's all kinds of use cases of like, how do I do this? And there's a video for that. So that's an active library. 2016, she does an eyeshadow palette with e.l.f. 2017, we do 5 brushes with Sigma Beauty. 2017 again, 2 highlighters with Artist Couture. 2019, eyeshadow palette with Anastasia Beverly Hills. That even before we get to Forever Mood, the brand she launched in 2020. I think the number was 700,000 in sales in 4 hours, and then did 6 million top line revenue in the first year.
Honestly,
and it was a lifestyle brand. It wasn't even on some like that's an extension of what she had been known for. So she took a bet on herself in a big way. She was early on Instagram Shop too.
Dog, she's the Michael Jordan of this shit. I don't care. I don't care if it's a take. I don't care if I get dragged. She's the Michael Jordan of this shit. She really is, bro. Like, I never ever met a woman in my entire life, and I've dated a lot of women, Jonathan, I've never met a woman in my life that hasn't mentioned her. Like, she is part of all of their playbooks, dog. And the thing that I've learned is that the principle I think that Jackie Aina carries is that like your credibility compounds over time. Like once your audience believes you, they will believe you forever. Period.
Yeah, I have been struck by the amount of reinvention as well. So we kind of talked about these sort of she was doing joint venture deals before there was kind of the standard of what we know now as kind of this influencer market. And so when we talk about the things we see as standard now and brand partnerships, like there is some level of invention in terms of how the kind of influence she has built and now carries reimagines how people are expected to work with other people. And so this is the thing about markets. When you have someone who sets a standard and then keeps setting it over and over and over again, what happens is as they transcend or move to a different place, there are norms. And so people meet at the intersection of the norm. And so that thing that was not normal has become table stakes. And the person goes, cool, love that, but I got to go over here and do this other thing. And so each transition leaves clues. And from those clues, norms and behaviors get shifted. And so you have agencies being like, okay, how do we find the next version of that? You have creators being, okay, I see this. How can I essentially verticalize what she did here, but over here?
Yeah.
Right? In fitness or as a lifestyle entrepreneur. But I know the audience is going to help me actually pivot over here. And so there's kind of a professionalization that I do believe she was a part of and sort of a vanguard towards, which is this idea. This is a career. Like this is an actual career. And like when she started, it was not. Not only was it not a career, it was low status.
Bro, Michael Jordan, 6 rings. You are reading all of the amazing stats of what's arguably the greatest player of all time in this space, bro. That's what we're talking about right now. Okay?
Yeah, it's fire. Fire. So the other thing that's interesting in our extensive research for this episode was the other professionalization flywheel that beauty has. And so we've talked a lot about sort of brands, creators, intersections, but there's a whole other element of the professionalized creator that I don't think it's talked about a lot, which is kind of the medical and professional wellness curatorial. And so there's expert creators now that are dermatologists, nutritionists, coaches, trainers, estheticians that are part of this kind of 4P framework we talked about, where there are pharmacy doctors reviewing topicals because they recommend it at their pharmacy. So they have that. So they're like an actual pharmacist and they have a YouTube channel. I saw a guy, his name is Dr. Arian Aspires, and he had essentially a 15-minute video where he talked about why he loved a specific topicals product. That's all he did. He was like, this is why I use it. It's what I recommend. It's really great for X, Y, and Z. Here's how it clears up your skin. That's the video. No endorsement, no sort of paid ad, just like, this is good. You should use it. And I think there's something very distinct. You sometimes can see this in finance, but it's a little less because depending on if you're regulated or not. But because the doctors have professional credibility, similar to lawyers, and accountants, and certain types of investment managers, there's things to be within their ethical boundaries they cannot do. which creates a margin of trust because they are restrained from simply being bozos. And in light of that, they actually can't just say whatever they want. So when they lend their credibility, it actually changes the sensitivity to that product. And so you see this all over kind of social now, which is that as creator is sort of a byproduct of simply being present in the ecosystem, more and more medical professionals are being asked what they use, what they recommend, which is a completely different referral channel for a beauty brand, especially if that person runs their own practice, is a well-regarded doctor. And I just think that's a very unique integration of sort of this creator economy and the promise of the product. Like if the product does what it does and you're getting like that used to be like a toothpaste thing, right? You'd be like, hey, like 4 out of 4 surgeons,
9 out of 10 dentists
recommend this fluoride free toothpaste. But now it's like this well-known cosmetic surgeon recommends this product as aftercare.
Yeah.
And then turns around and just has it in their clinic. And so that's its own other prestige thing where it's like, we are now in this clinic that like this kind of person goes to for this kind of procedure. And you are also now able to have a relationship through recommendation. So we didn't even you might not have heard of us, but we have a relationship at this kind of level. And so now we have a completely different access point because you're more than likely to swear by this because the person who operated on you gave it to you. And that's like a flywheel outside of, I think, the normal kind of like paid or earned media cycle, which is, I just think fascinating in an industry this competitive. Like you don't just get that.
Right. I don't know. So one, I completely agree with you. I kind of also think about some of the other brands that find different ways to innovate. So like there's like Jade Habits, right? Jade Habits basically does fashion criticism and cultural commentary, but the way he does it with the focus on menswear and grooming also like creates this process where you get to build trust as well, right? And it shows that, of course, like as effective as it is in terms of a flywheel for a medical professional that's doing these recommendations for particular products, that also in this way of like, you can also create a flywheel in terms of like connected products, right? Like this idea of playing a person who is walking you through how to basically get your life together, right? Like if you are a 21-year-old male and you just got your first job, you just graduated college, and you basically don't know how to do much, right? Like you just got your little check, so you don't know what product to buy or how your suits should fit or what products you should be using for your hair, right? Like Jade Habits basically not only shows you what it is, but also does this like, this is why it's good, this is why it's bad, in this very trustworthy style, right? And I also think that, you know, when I'm holding up this like medical professional kind of recommendation for products, I also think about these types of folks who just have been almost agnostic in the process, because for them, they've just been focused on getting you right, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think I don't even know if they're agnostic. I just think they are focused on the experience as opposed to the outcome. So Jay's front row at these shows, he's wearing the clothing, he's personable, he's telling you how to put it on, and he's adjacent. So if you're talking about clothing, people are going to inevitably talk about routines. Like you're going to see him get dressed. There's lifestyle. He's traveling. So you're with him. So he's going to show you what's in his bag. He's going to show you what he uses. He might obviously show you outfit of the day content or what's moving in menswear because he's present. So that's the other part of, he's an industry insider. And so he's telling you things and then he's giving you his perspective on things. And so he's helping you shape your own taste because he has his own. And so I think that's also, he's a real deal influence magnate. And I say influence because I differentiate influence as the ability to clearly articulate your sensibility over a duration of time, from influencer, which is often pegged to, can you create this kind of outcome in this duration of time? And I think when you separate those things out, when they meet in the middle, that's a very, very powerful thing.
Yeah.
And typically it's highly investable.
Yeah.
When those things are separate, you find that over time, they can meet in the middle or they might always diverge, and you can be fine on either side. But it is, I think, a rare experience to have those things intersect. And I think that's why, somebody like Kelly Augustine, who is a real New Yorker.
The real New York. I'm outside. I don't live in Miami. I don't live in Colorado.
She's from the town.
Like, she legit went to Bronx High. She's like a genius.
Yeah, so she's like really, really one of them. Someone like that who was also early in the space before there was a name for it, who I think, my thing with Kelly is I think she dresses like Black Thought raps.
I'm not gonna lie, bro.
Like, she's just better than you. No. Like, I went, for the research, I went on her page and I literally saw her wearing, I think it was like August, and the caption was something crazy like, I want it to be pre-fall. So then she just put on like a snakeskin like jacket and then snakeskin boots. And I literally was like, I am not good enough to wear clothes. I have to try harder.
Yo,
Like,
I be seeing Kelly. I be seeing Kelly outside. Like, I seen Kelly in Bushwick, and Kelly had a fit, and I said, "Yo, my nigga, do they make that for men?"
Bro,
It's rare that I'm doing that.
I think there's like a legitimate, this is what I mean though, like, because she's like nice at like putting it on, and then she's nice at putting people in the things they should be putting on, that intersection is so crazy because, again, it's an extension of beauty. Like, she was doing the cover of Bridal Mag.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and so like she's around. So if you think about that kind of network of like the Muas know the stylists, who know the creators, who know the heads of the brand, who then L'Oreal is like, come to this dinner so we can all just get the brain think. Like, there's kind of this really rich tapestry. But again, we have to be honest about the distinction between somebody with real proper New York street style, being from New York,
Yeah.
and someone who literally moved here post grad and, takes selfies inside of random spots and tells you what's great about New York. Like, those are two distinct things. And while there could be material value a brand extracts from that, that's very different than someone looking at Kelly put on a fit and be like, how do I purchase that immediately, today, in this moment, because I need to look that good in my regular life and I don't. And so I think that, again, there's an aspiration to all this in this conversation. It's like the promise of the product and how you feel about yourself and looking good and feeling good is often delivered by these merchants. Like, there's some form of delivery happening. And I think that that's why this industry is such a powerful example of early adoption of the creator economy, because you're trying to get people to take a behavior. You need them to do a thing, and sometimes you need to see someone do it first. And so if you don't know how to do that makeup, you need to see someone. If you don't know how to wear that, you need to see Kelly wear it. If you're not sure, how to get your pants hemmed, you might need Jay to actually tell you what that looks like. And so I think all of these things kind of coalesce into like an instructional environment that is has commercial value, has deep pockets because you're actually taking up margin, and is also continues to scale as people think about what their individuality looks like in terms of the products that they have, the things they wear, and those things are always intersecting. Because everything's a routine. How you get dressed, how you wash your face are always going to intersect because we're human. Like, these are things we have to go outside and engage. And I think that to me is, where do you want to be in that? Like, what when people are thinking about inspiration, like where in the opportunity lane do you want to exist?
Yeah, that's real. And I think about, when I consider that, I see why brands have such a large thirst to work with creators, right? Because there's just this level of authenticity that no matter how much a brand tries, they cannot emulate, right? Like, for example, like, there's no brand that's recreating a Kelly. So you need to actually partner with Kelly, because Kelly's going to tell us how to put that shit on, right? And I'd say, like, at least one of the first larger brands that I've seen actually kind of try their best to have like a real authentic approach while working with creators was Sephora, when they kind of launched like the Sephora Squad program, and like, what was that, 2019 or so? Just really saying, hey, we're going to work with select creators. We know what they mean to their audiences. We know how authentic they are. So we're going to build these long-term relationships with these creators, right? What other brands, at least mentally, are you seeing that kind of have tried to build that relationship between, creators and themselves, but like just on a real authentic basis for long periods of time?
I think Sephora is an interesting example because they're a retailer. And so a retailer has to consistently think about foot traffic and product. And to your point, right, they just released storefronts. So this new environment where they're like, hey, we had an experiment. It worked. We need to continue to evolve. And so we need to make it available for people to set up their own storefront so their audience can transact with them directly. So we're just going to build more stores everywhere by virtue of where people are shopping. So we're seeing the data. I think another example of sort of long-term thinking here, because I don't think it's a bet. I think it's an experiment. If you treat it like an experiment, you're like, what am I solving for? And if you're solving for immediate product delivery, maybe like just randomly signing people isn't the way. But if you're solving for trust in a trust-sensitive environment, you can be also thinking like Fenty, who this year was like, oh, look, the New York Liberty seemed to be pretty fashionable. What if we just sponsored them and, I don't know, like parts of the rest of the league, because these players are also fashion icons that wear clothes and get dressed up outside in the arena and then after games. And so if I think about somebody who's invested, it's the same kind of people we mentioned.
Yeah.
If you were invested in your audience up front, you're not going to miss this moment because you're built for it. You have the capacity to be like, yeah, that's somebody we want to play with because they're different, they're distinctive, because that's who we wanted to be. So you're already attuned in your, because brand is simply a series of promises made publicly and then delivered on.
That's a bar.
So if you are already, that's part of your value system, it's not hard for you to find people with your shared values. You don't have, that's why when people are like, I don't know what creators to sign, I'm like, you don't have any values. Because it gets really easy to see what you do and do not want to do, and you're clear. And most people aren't clear, so they come outside confused, and they wonder why they get hit by oncoming traffic. It's a green light on you. You should have waited for the red, but you didn't. And so when you're in the crosswalk and it's like a green, you got to dodge cars instead of getting in the one that can take you where you want to go. So I feel like Fenty, I think Topicals had a billboard on Atlantic for like 4 months. I used to go to the gym and it felt like a girl was just looking at me being like, your face isn't clean enough. Like
go wash your face.
Yeah,
Jonathan.
I was like,
go wash your face.
But it was hard because it's like to decide to do that, like that's part of, if your bio says slicker than your average, like that's part of you. That's part of how you show up. So it makes sense that you'd have that's actually where you'd have a billboard. So I think the people who are moving in their lane are continuing to, and I think that's part of this for me. You know, I had a chance to hear Culture and Curtis talk, who's the founder of Team Epiphany, and Team Epiphany was one of the early people in this space. I think it is true to say that they coined the framing of the influencer environment and then taught people how to navigate it. And he said, I'll paraphrase, but he mentioned how he's from Bed-Stuy, and he was like, when people talk about influencers and who has influence, he said, I have a simple rubric. He said, anytime somebody talks about their influence, I listen to what they say and who they say they know. And then I might end up in a room, or I might take them to a room where that person they said they know exists, and I'll ask them to go talk to them. Because how I grew up in my neighborhood, if you had influence, people knew you. So I just expect that if you have influence, the person you said you know will talk to you. Simple litmus test. A lot of people can't do it. And I think that's the difference. Like, a lot of people are like, yeah, I know, but it's like, do they respond to you?
Yeah.
When you ask them to do something, and that's a brand. Do you have a relationship where there's a response, and do you know how to meet that response well, or are you simply entertaining but not engaging? Because I think that's possible too. Like, you can be very entertaining and people can keep moving, but to take that next step requires a lot of upfront investment. And I think that's what I want to, that's why talking about beauty was important, because there's so much upfront investment before a product even comes out. And that's just the first step. From then on, it's like you have to meet expectations and continue to exceed them, because there's so many people with promises.
Yeah, like beauty's a hard business, bro. And the consumer's a tough crowd. Like, if you don't pay an influencer and they come out and they say, yo, this beauty brand ain't pay me, like, the audience is deep frying you. You are Korean fried chicken. It's over for you, right? Like, this is a very tough environment. And to me, like, I find that a lot of the beauty founders, a lot of the folks who are in the space, like, are the most tactical. They're the most thoughtful, because they know the sensitivity in that relationship, And so, like, although this episode talks about this industry and talks about the products and some of the very, very important people who are in that space, this is also just like a lesson in how to actually run your business when you're running a business online. When you decide, hey, I'm going to be a creator, I'm going to create a business structure that's related to what I'm doing. Like, these are some of the principles that you actually should be thinking through when going out to market, right? Like, How connected am I to my audience? What kind of relationship do I want to have with my audience? Am I real with the relationship that I actually have with them, right? And also on the other side is my product actually ready to ship? Can I meet the order request? Do I have the capacity? Do you have the facilities for that, big man? Right? Like, these are the things you got to think about before you go out there. So watching beauty, because I know that, of course, we have a lot of wonderful ladies that watch our show, but a lot of guys watch our show too. And there's a lot you can actually learn from this space, even though, like, let's say if you're a guy and your product suite is limited to men's grooming and skincare products, there's a lot you can actually learn from the products that are marketed to women. Like how they're marketed, how those communities are built, how they're maintained. There's so much, if you're a business person, like there's so much to learn from those strategies that you can apply yourself, you know? So I think that's effectively it for this episode. Is there anything else you want to share, John, before we wrap up?
Wash your face.
Word. Facts. Y'all be out here coming outside with coal in your eye. And we don't want to see that. So wash your face. Facts.
I'm Jonathan.
I'm Carl. This is Do Dilly. Don't follow me. Don't follow John. Don't follow us. Just follow the money.
So I don't want to minimize the challenges that everyone is facing right now. And how I still have that mindset in an environment of immense rejection, of constant no's, of the rare yes, of constant losses and things not looking so bright and sunny, is that I'm not quitting. I can't lose if I keep going. Like, there are some days where I'm just like, damn, it's over for me. They got me. But then I'm like, no, that's not, like, nah, not like this. Like, it's really about, it's not even a software upgrade. It's downright defiance. Like, hell nah, I'm not going out like that. Like, it's just feeling like, no, I'm digging my heels in. If you want me out, you're going to have to take me out. I may look like I'm losing, but I'm still on the field.